G'day guys, Rubber Kitty here, how's it going? Okay, so I've done a few things on listening and stuff like that, and it's always good to go over things as well. You know, go over some of the, things that you've heard before, and we might come off with something a little different you take away from it. And I suppose the thing is these days is, given the actual inundation that we get of all of our senses, and you've got to ask yourself sometimes, am I really listening? Am I really listening to the person I'm communicating with? Or am I just waiting for my turn to talk? And what I guess is that a lot of people, it's and I talked about this with like empathy yesterday, is that a lot of the times people believe that if you're actually sharing or communicating with someone and coming up with a like experience to try and be empathetic towards them, like share a similar story, that you're being empathetic. It's not necessarily the case. You can share a story to get empathy with somebody, but then are you also taking the focus of the conversation away from what they're trying to express and put it back onto yourself, in which case that's not really empathy, that's more of a hey, I want the spotlight now kind of a thing. So are you really listening? Really listening? It's a difficult thing because it's not a perfect thing. Not everyone can basically improve on listening and communicating, because different situations, different people, different moods, different things going on in your lives mean that, at some time or another, or more often than not, there's part of you that's not really listening to somebody. And it's a skill that needs to be practiced and learnt. And some things that do help is, instead of when you want to feel like you have the urge immediately to go, hey look, I want to say something, I want to relate something, interrupt, clarify, or go, yeah, oh, I see. Try and quiet your brain down and park those thoughts and really focus on the words people are saying, the message that they're trying to express and communicate and convey to you, and be aware and realize that it's not just the words. Too many times people focus on words, specific meanings and definitions of words. Those are, I guess, set in stone because there are specific definitions for the words, but they're meant to convey ideas, and ideas and concepts are not set in stone. They're quite malleable. It's one of those things where, you can't really say, okay, this shade of red is a specific shade of red. Scientifically, this is the red on the chromograph to say, this number, blah, 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 is a shade of red. That's all very well and good. However, you also come across somebody who's colorblind. So that's not going to really... I mean, scientifically, it might still be the same color, but what they are looking at is completely different. And it's also been shown scientifically that guys and girls actually look at the same colour and they'll see different shades as well. I know there's a building with some glass here in Brisbane where if guys look at it, they see it as more blue, but when girls look at it, they see it as more of a green. That's a biological difference. It's still, scientifically the same set colour. However, biology, perception, whatever it is, means that you're actually looking at something and perceiving it differently. That's where, the terminologies can come in and say, oh, that's generally red, or that's generally blue-green, but is it more blue than it is green? Is it more green than it is blue? That's the difficult part of communication, is accepting that someone sees it as more green, and you go, okay, well, I see it as more blue. Fair enough, I know what colour you're talking about now, and therefore when I make a reference to say this color is cerulean, I know exactly the kind of shade you're looking at, rather than what I think is cerulean. And I think of it as more of this sort of bluey color than it is slightly with a tinge of green or a more green color. It's not to say going out to someone saying, oh, you're wrong, it's this color, because the perceptions are different, positions are different, biology is different, you know, and the whole purpose of words is to try and help convey messages, not stop communication. So being able to suspend your sense of self, your sense of definition, and work around and try and figure out what other people are talking about is an important thing. And for a lot of people, certain words will trigger certain images, reactions, definitions in their head. This can be helpful, and it is very helpful, because that gives you a starting point for communication and saying, okay, this is what I think they're talking about, but ask more questions. Because what you could be thinking about and what the other person could be thinking about could be two entirely different things, despite the fact that you're using technically the same words. It's the concepts that are hard to flesh out, and concepts that don't exactly match. If they exactly match, they'd be the same person, and you wouldn't need to be having a conversation. What you need to find is the overlap and how much it overlaps, and if it's a thing you can grasp your head around. If you're constantly talking and arguing about the same things, really sit back and have a look at what is the message trying to be conveyed. The words can continually change. If you're using the same words, the same phrases to try and get through, and they're using different words or phrases, they're trying to explain to you their concept, but you're not listening. There's been times when it's been, okay, I've tried that approach. Okay, let me use this other terminology. Let me ask some questions. Okay, this is what you think. Okay, well, okay, you think that way. Okay, this is how I relate to it. And is this what you mean? And if they're constantly saying no, then maybe try and figure out different words and concepts, or listen to the other person questioning you. Because in their questions, you can figure out what they're actually trying to understand about your message and where they're coming from. But if you're constantly denouncing, no, that's wrong, and not trying to meet them halfway, then you're still going to be talking about this and trying to flesh out this concept for many years to come, with the same kind of frustrating end, is that you feel you're not being listened to when you're also not listening to the other person. It's a two-way street. It's one of those things I talk about a lot in BDSM, like conversations, trust, this whole power exchange is a two-way street. That's why they call it an exchange. That's why I refer to it as a dynamic, because it's not just one way. I don't just take what you give. And you don't just take what I give. It's an exchange and it's a flow. And for some people that can be difficult because things are pretty much set in stone. But for others, it's not so much. The way things go, you got to understand other people's point of view, and that's not going to be set in stone because people will change and evolve as well. So, are you really listening? Do you find yourself interrupting or narrating somebody's conversation, or interrupting to clarify, which can be helpful as long as it's short, sharp, and not diverging from what they're saying? And you'll notice that they'll stop and diverge and try and address the issue. Getting them back on track to finish their train of thought is also good, because then they've actually felt like they've been listened to as well. And nothing more frustrating than having your train of thought interrupted to explain something and having to come back to it again and start over again. And it's just frustrating, at which point feel free to walk away, disengage, wait till the other person is more receptive. And sometimes that might never happen. That other person might never want to listen to what you have to say, or they're so intent on their own view of the world and imposing that onto you that, you know, they're missing out, basically. So yeah, only you can decide how much energy you want to put into that. But I encourage people to think about if they're really listening or not. If you occasionally take the time to say, okay, I'm not going to interject with my own message, or my own story. I'm going to listen to this towards the very end. I mean, really, really listen. Even though I've talked to people and they've said the same thing 1,000 times, I still like to listen to them. And people don't understand why. And why is that? Because sometimes it reinforces what I see is their belief, and at other times I get something new out of what they're saying, because I'm in a different frame of mind, different headspace, or they're talking to someone different and they come up with another explanation that when they're talking to somebody different, in which case I go, aha, I didn't quite get it before, but I do now, or I did get it, but I only got this part of it. So I get more of it now. I understand more of it now. It's the same reason, I can watch a movie or listen to a song over and over again, because at different times in your life, different words and phrases will appeal to you emotionally, mentally, and all that jazz. So, are you really listening, or are you just waiting for your turn to speak? That's something important to ask yourself when you're having DMCs in particular. So this is Tuesday, it's overcast. This is probably why I was aching all Sunday, because of the rain. And yes, aching, joints, all those sort of things that happen when you have accidents or you injure yourself. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Remember to listen to each other. See yous.